Hello. Welcome to session one of Debt Payoff Made Simple. I am really excited to be here with you today because paying off debt and getting that financial confidence back is something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm going to talk a little bit about it today as I share with you. Um, but I'm just happy to be kind of running these workshops and leading people on this. I on this path to debt payoff. I can't think of the right word I want, but I think that's kind of what we're doing. We're setting a path, we're laying some groundwork so that we can begin to pay off our debt and have a really solid plan to do that. And this is step one for that plan. I'm going to do not disturb my phone because otherwise we're going to have pings and all kinds of stuff going on. And I don't want to be distracted. I want to be 100% here with you. So, just a quick bit about me. My name is Jen Sullivan. I was a teacher for many, many years and I struggled with debt for a long time. It was just something that felt really overwhelming to me. I didn't know how to pay it off. I didn't know how to stop using my credit cards. Like I couldn't figure out how to have enough money every month to make it all work. And it was something that I was embarrassed about. I was ashamed about. I never asked for help because I figured I was like the only one struggling with it. So I didn't ask any friends or family because it was so embarrassing, right? And just overwhelming. So I now love to educate other women about how to pay off their debt, how to manage their money, how to create budgets that really work for you, that are practical and realistic. And something that I really want you to keep in mind, because as I'm talking today, if I forget to say it, I want you to know that I am never, no one in Female Finance Collective and Money Made Simple community is ever going to say, stop spending on everything. We're never going to say, don't spend on the things that really bring you joy because that's just not realistic. And we want this to be something that's practical, something that you can stick with long term. And much like a diet, right? Or a healthy eating plan, if you just cut out everything you really love to eat, that healthy eating plan is going to last about 5 minutes because you're going to start to really miss all the things that you really enjoy. And the same is true when it comes to money. If we stop spending on everything that we really enjoy, all the things we really like to do, then we really are like, forget about it. I am miserable. And we just start spending again. So I want you to know this plan, this debt payoff is not going to be about sitting at home on the couch with no TV to watch and only reading library books that you got for free from the library. Like, that's not what this is about. That also sounds like a lovely night in to me. However, there's going to be a balance here between making some choices, making some sacrifices, and making some cuts, but also still enjoying the life, right? And enjoying our life and doing the things that we really love. So I'm going to dive in. Session one is all about the truth about debt. And this is really just a chance for us to kind of talk about how we got here, right? What is true and factual about having debt and being in debt, and then what we want to do to move forward. So, how did you get here, right? Like, how did I get into debt? A lot of times it's because our systems, our habits, and any gaps that we have in financial education. So I genuinely didn't know how to make a budget that was realistic. I would try to set up budgets, but I was honestly just saying, it feels like I should spend about this much money. I was not doing any sort of work to figure out how much I'm actually spending, what's practical or realistic. I had some bad spending habits, and I really didn't have any good systems in place. That's how I found myself into debt. Some common paths: student loans. A lot of times people have student loans and the payment is so big that in order to stay up on that, that really eats into your monthly income, how much money you have left to spend on those other things. So that's a factor. Credit cards, using and spending freely with our credit cards. Sometimes we have unexpected expenses come up. Those could be medical expenses, repairs on a vehicle or a home that we just didn't have enough money saved up for. We had to rely on debt to pay for those. There's that sneaky lifestyle creep where we start to make more money. So we feel like we should have more money to spend. And we feel like we should have a nicer car or a nicer place to live or different clothes and be shopping in different places. And that lifestyle creep can really cost a lot. And then again, lacking a budget or system. If you don't have a budget or a system in place, it can really lead to overspending because you genuinely just don't know how much money you have. Most of us end up in debt in very similar ways. We could all tell a story and we're like, yep, that was me. Or, oh, I totally get that. That happened to me too. And it has nothing to do with our character. It has nothing to do with what kind of a person you are, how good of a person, your intelligence. It's all just situational. It's how we got here. Doesn't mean we're a bad person. And it doesn't mean all the negative things I used to tell myself, right? None of those were true. They were just um, a result of me feeling frustrated and stressed and overwhelmed. And that is the emotional toll of debt, right? So we all get there in very similar ways, in ways that are relatable. And then we all feel this emotional toll. If somebody says that they don't feel stress or overwhelm or guilt or anything when it comes to their debt, I am shocked because I feel like there are so many feelings around it, right? It's frustrating to not have enough money every month to make ends meet and then to have to rely on your credit card. It's stressful to know that you have this huge bill coming every month. It can feel shameful when you literally don't have enough money to pay for your groceries and gas at the end of the month and you have to use your credit card. Um, it can lead to avoidance where we just stop paying attention to our money altogether. We just spend freely because we're like, it's so overwhelming and so stressful, I can't even think about it, right? Debt can come with these really big feelings, and the emotional side of debt is real. And acknowledging that is a huge and very productive way to start. If you can acknowledge, I am overwhelmed. I feel stressed. I feel shame. I feel embarrassed. And whatever words apply to you, whatever feelings and emotions apply to you, acknowledge that the debt has gotten you to this place and then work really hard, because I know this is easier said than done. Work really hard to put those emotions aside and start thinking forward. I am going to build confidence around my money. I am going to reduce my stress when it comes to finances because I'm going to make a plan, right? This emotional toll of our finances and of debt can really, really be overwhelming, and it just rides around with you, right? It was always in the back of my mind. I always describe it as this black cloud that hung over my head, and it impacted me every time I spent money. Every single time I thought about the debt, and I thought about, did I need to be spending that? Should I be putting that towards an extra credit card payment? All of these factors, right? And it's a lot. This is all a lot. And it's another truth about debt. Another truth, our habits and excuses often keep us stuck, right? So, one habit, only making the minimum payment on our credit card. I'm going to talk about that a little bit on the next slide, how that really keeps us stuck. But only making the minimum payment will never help us get our debt paid off. And that's a habit I was in, right? Or I would try to pay more because I knew I should, but then at the end of the month I was out of money. And so I ended up using money on my credit card anyway. So it always like came back at me. It's a bad habit. Avoiding looking at our balances is a really rough habit. If we don't have the information and we're just putting it off, things can be so much worse than we think. And by worse, I mean the debt can be so much larger than we realize. And sometimes it's actually a good thing. And we actually have a smaller amount of debt than we think we do. So there's two sides of that, but it's a bad habit to just avoid looking at it altogether. This excuse of, oh, I'm waiting for this perfect time to start. I was a teacher and I would sometimes say, I'm going to wait until after the holidays because the second half of the year, like I'm really stressed and overwhelmed right now with work, so this will be better. Or I'm just going to wait for summer because then I'll have some downtime to really focus on it. There was no perfect time for me to start. And every single time one of those seasons came around, I had another good excuse to put it off some more. So that's another one that kind of keeps us stuck. And I would also say the comparison game. Comparing ourselves to where other people are, whether it's people we see online, people we see in our friend groups, in our family, who are living a certain lifestyle that we feel like we should also be able to live, or spending on something we feel we should also be able to spend on. And I know that got me stuck. I know it was a habit that I would compare myself. Well, they can go on this vacation. Why can't I? I work harder than that person. I put in more hours. How is it that I only have enough money for this and I can't afford that? Right. So that comparison game also kept me stuck. And I'm sure lots of other people stuck in that debt. Right. And that's just another truth about debt, that these habits and excuses keep us here. They hold us in this place of debt. And then let's talk about the financial cost, the real financial cost of carrying debt. So, interest compounds over time. And I'm not going to go into specific numbers here. If somebody has a question, if you're rewatching this and you have a question about how this might work specifically, I'm happy to break down the numbers for you or create a specific example. But let's just keep it really simple so that we can start to think about, oh, yeah, because sometimes intellectually we might know it, but when it's actually happening to us every month on our statement, it's easy to pretend like it's not happening, right? So let's pretend that this month we bought a sweater. We used our credit card. We didn't have money in the budget to pay for it, so we used our credit card. So when our bill comes next month, we have the price of the sweater plus the interest that we're charged. Interest right now is running between, on average, I'd say between 25 and like 30, even higher than 30%. So we'll just say it's like 30%. So next month, I now owe the price of the sweater plus 30% of the sweater price in interest. So let's say the sweater was $100 and the 30% interest is $30. So now instead of paying $100 for the sweater, I now owe $130. And then let's say, okay, I'm just going to pay the minimum balance because this month is tight. I don't have any extra money to pay extra on my credit card. Minimum payments are only between 1 and 3% of your balance. That's right. So your interest is about 30%, but your minimum payment is only 1 to 3%. So now you're only paying 1 to 3% of that $130. Now it carries over to the next month. And now you're going to have the sweater, the other interest, and the new interest, because you're going to get interest charged again, another 30% interest. And then let's say you've also purchased a couple tanks of gas and some groceries on your credit card this time because you didn't have any extra money in your budget. Now you've got the 30% interest on those charges, and you only have to pay 1 to 3%. Do you see how very, very quickly that interest and that debt compounds very fast? And that is how it can get really overwhelming, both financially and emotionally, right? Because the number gets big really fast. Paying only the minimum payment keeps our balances very high. It is impossible to pay off your debt if you're only paying the minimum payments. It just is, right? It keeps you in good standing with your credit card company because you don't have late pays on your credit history. They're like, yep, this person pays on time, we're good. But it is impacting you greatly because that balance is not going down. And then what happens is so much of our monthly income ends up going toward our debt, right? So instead of having this extra money in our account every month where we can have some flexibility in our budget, we're taking this huge chunk of our monthly income and putting it towards that credit card debt. And if we can't pay much more than the minimum payment, we're not even making any progress on it. We're just keeping ourselves afloat. So it's really, really expensive, this real cost of carrying debt. It's expensive in money, like financially expensive, and also emotionally expensive too, because we just are barely hanging on, right? It's this really tricky act where the money just keeps going towards the credit card, but it's not making any progress. So once you can pay it off or begin to pay it off, that's when the game changes for you, right? This All these truths about debt that we've been talking about start to make a turn. So now we have less stress and we have more options with what we're paying and how we're paying for things. We have more confidence because we're making progress. We're paying things down. We're having some flexibility in our budget. We're figuring out where to get money from other places to pay extra. We're making some choices so we start to have a little more confidence in how we manage our budget. And then we have more freedom in how we spend. Now I know, okay, hold on. I've made this huge progress on my credit card. Now I have some more money in my monthly budget. Now I have some more freedom in being able to put money in savings or being able to pay for a vacation or being able to pay cash for an item that I really want instead of always relying on my credit card. It's a huge change to these truths that we've been talking about. And so all of that leads us to what's next, right? So this conversation is all about the truths about debt, the kind of negative things that result from having this financial debt. And what's next is we're going to get clear on our numbers in session 2. But before we get there, I want you to reflect on what this was all about. I want you to take some time and consider the emotional toll that your debt has taken on you personally. How has that impacted you and what has it looked like? And I'm really going to encourage you to dig deep and be honest. Don't say, you know what, it really hasn't been that big of a deal when truthfully you do feel stressed when you have to, you know, pay that bill every month. You do feel overwhelmed trying to figure out where the money's going to come from. You do really wish that you didn't have to rely on your credit card, but you could actually just pay for things outright or pay that balance off at the end of the month. So really, really dig in and think about the emotional debt that it has taken for you and how you want to change that. Like, what would it be like if that wasn't the case, right? If you could turn things around. And then I want you to really be honest with yourself about your habits and excuses. That was a really hard one for me when I had all these habits and these excuses and stories that I would tell myself. And then once I got honest about them with myself, I was like, oh my gosh, like, these are stories, these are not truths, and I can make some changes and still be okay. So I want you to think about that. And then I want you to mentally prepare to dig into your debt. You may be watching this and you're very familiar with all your numbers, your amounts, you know it all. You're just not sure how to get a payoff plan together. But you might be also watching this and not know what your numbers are and not know all of the debts, and you just think about them in isolation rather than one big debt. So I want you to mentally prepare to dig into that. And then session 2 on Friday, I'm going to be live on May 29th at 10 a.m. Central. If you are all planning to watch the recordings, they will be out by the end of that day. And we are going to talk about getting clear on our numbers. And I'm going to give you some specific things to do so that you have a very good picture of exactly what your numbers are. And then we'll be using those moving forward to plug them into our actual plan. I have a debt calculator for you that I'm going to gift to you, and you're going to use that to figure out exactly which ones you're going to pay off first, where you're going to put your money. It is going to do the work for us. And so if you are feeling hesitant or overwhelmed thinking about that piece, I want you to put those fears aside, because the calculator that we have to work with is going to be really, really helpful and take a lot of the hard work on for us and make it really simple and straightforward. So, thank you for being here. I am really, really proud of you for showing up, for kind of admitting that there is something here that you really want to work on and improve, for putting in the work. I'm just proud of you ahead of time because it takes emotional and kind of just this like mental work to get all of this where you want it to be, and that you can do it. We're going to do it together. I'm going to walk you through all the steps. I'm here to mentor you every step of the way. So if you have questions or anything at all, if you're in the community, drop the questions there. If I'm emailing this to you, you can email me back and ask me any questions, and I am here for you. So I'm very excited about session 2. It's not too late for people to join. So if you have a friend or a family member or someone you think would really benefit from Debt Payoff Made Simple, uh, we can get them in. It's not too late. All right. Have a great week, and I will see you on Friday.